Hello and welcome to another episode of a Brothers Creed podcast, where we inspire fathers to build the blueprint for the next generation of our children. And we are the Thomas Brothers. I'm Jared.
And I'm Ethan. And today, one of the pillars or principles of that blueprint that we'll be talking about is strength. We've talked about so many different principles that have just been things that we can add to our own personal creeds and to grow and to become better men and father and contributors and husbands. And strength was one of those ones that kind of seems all-encompassing because there's so many different ways that people can be strong, that people can be. I think we already did one on resilience, right? And so it's kind of similar, but I think it even goes beyond that. So it's going to be a great episode. We're going to get in. We're going to talk about strength, different aspects of it, maybe tell some stories, and learn how we can add this to our own personal creeds.
Yes, sir. Let's go ahead and let's do it. Let's dive in. Let's do it.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day.
You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
No retreat, no surrender.
You can't conceive of what I'm capable of.
There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
What we do in life, that goes in eternity.
So one of the things about strength that I think is interesting is it's kind of, it's like a multi-tool. It's like a Swiss Army knife. There's so many different meanings to strength. So that's why I'm calling it the virtue of many meanings. And I think in some cases, some of the virtues that we talk about, there can be bad. The virtues are simply just words, and it depends on how you apply that, right? So it's like one thing I was talking with my wife about is like loyalty. You know, what if you apply your loyalty? It's like I'm loyal to the Illuminati, or a bad organization, or I'm loyal to an organization that aims to pollute every river in America or the world, and it's like, okay, well, that loyalty is misserved, So in that sense, like the word loyalty is not really, you can't just blanketly apply that, right? Because you can have misaligned loyalties. But I don't think strength, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, Ethan, but I think that strength is one of those things that the stronger you are across a multitude of factors, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, there's extremes, I think, but that doesn't, there's no, being strong is, I think, always a good thing, right? There's never a situation when being strong is a bad thing.
I mean, I think strength could be, maybe compared to, maybe utilized poorly, to take advantage of other people, maybe, right? Maybe overpower someone that's not willing, or and maybe I'm talking physical strength, but I don't.
But
think
the attribute of being strong in the first place,
the attribute of being strong, no, I don't see any negative to that.
I mean, I guess one thing that usually the stronger you are, the less flexible you are. So maybe that's the downside.
Well, I mean, it kind of maybe there's this guy on YouTube. His name's Juji Mufu. And he's a bodybuilder, but he's like an acrobat, and so he's like super flexible. He's the guy that has like he'll like hold the like 135 pounds on a barbell above his head and do like a split.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen that video.
I haven't seen that. No, but there's a couple different. So when I think about strength, I think about a couple different attributes, facets of strength. First of all, physical strength. I mean, that's probably the most obvious, the most no-brainer. I actually feel like, I mean, maybe I'll just give it 2 seconds to that one, and then maybe we could just walk through all of these, Ethan, and then I'm sure that you also have comments on a lot of these different ones. But let's talk about physical strength first. I think that it's so important to, one, just be physically fit. I saw this video on social media of this lady who is like in a parking lot with her, and her child is in a stroller, and the stroller starts rolling towards the main road, and the lady is like trying to get to the stroller, but she's so out of shape and so overweight that she falls down, and then she can't get back up, and like meanwhile the stroller is careening towards the main road with busy cars, and she can't even get back up to save her kid in a life or death situation. So people have to run in and save her kid because she can't get up because she was so overweight and out of shape. She just fell over, and she was just so. Yeah, you need to absolutely be strong enough to not only protect your family, especially as men, but to do the things that you want to do in life. You don't want to be that old guy who's just basically broken and unable to do anything other than just sit in a chair and watch the History Channel all day. You want to be the person that's out doing things, out being active. And those habits start when you are young and throughout your life. So make it a point to go to the gym, to choose something that you like. Model that for your kids. This past weekend, my wife ran a 5K. First race she's ever done. She's not really much of a runner, but she wanted to challenge herself. And one of the reasons why she did it, she was like, her speaking to me, she was like, you do your jiu-jitsu competitions and the kids get to see you being strong. She's like, I wanted them to see me being strong too. And so it's important I think that's absolutely
That's
great.
awesome.
It's like awesome. that they can see her be strong as well, and they can cheer her on, because obviously we went and cheered her on at two different spots in the race. And so to model that for your kids, like I was telling you earlier, we walk around the neighborhood. We walk almost like a mile loop around our neighborhood on the sidewalk. Shannon and I probably do it at least 3 times a day. And then we take the kids with us probably at least 2 or 3 times a week. Always on Saturdays. Sometimes in the evenings we'll go as a family. But that's just part of our family culture, is just being exercising, being healthy, going to do things. I've been doing jiu-jitsu as well as working out and something like that. And Ethan, you've been doing some stuff as well. So that's kind of my ideas on how to model and the importance of physical strength. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think just being capable of even just everyday tasks is very important. And I remember I really felt this whenever what was it? Probably about 5 years ago. I had like 2 herniated discs in my lower back, and one that was like supposedly they said it was like fully ruptured, like it was like all the goodness was squeezing out, right? And I
not in a good way.
Not in a good way. And I was in tons and tons of pain, and it was like almost debilitating pain. Like the only way I could get through the day was taking like 800 milligrams of ibuprofen 4 times a day. And even just getting up and like going out and like mowing the lawn or like picking some weeds or like taking the trash out was excruciating. And you just feel like you feel useless to a certain extent. And I guess that's the only way that I can really equate not being like physically capable, because all of my life, I would say I've always been pretty relatively fit and capable. But it's just so important just to stay healthy. And I think that directly ties into kind of one of the next strengths, which is mental strength. That is one, at least for me, that I have noticed is some of the best times I have ever felt mentally, and the strongest I've ever felt mentally, is when I was taking care of myself physically. And I think a lot of people can say similar. Obviously there are, there's lots of maybe sicknesses or imbalances or hereditary things that people deal with from a mental standpoint, maybe even from a physical standpoint too, right? But whatever your baseline is, I think you could definitely get stronger. You can get more resilient, and you can learn to adapt to situations depending on whatever your baseline is, and to move forward with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I appreciate your story about you being injured. I think there was a saying that, trying to remember it, not butcher it, that a healthy man has a million wants, but a sick man has only one want, and that is to be healthy.
Yeah.
And so whenever you're sick or in pain or you're hurt, all you want to do is be back to being healthy, so that you can then do everything else. And so, just one more comment on that. I heard a thing where it was like, oh, if you're, an old person, and a measure of your health is if you're able to sit on the floor, like cross, Indian style. I guess that's not the PC bar, cross-legged or
crisscross
applesauce. Yeah, the Indians didn't take too kindly to that type of language about their culture. So it's like you should be able to sit like that, crisscross applesauce on the floor, and then be able to stand up, without using your hands, right? And then that's how you know you're in good health. I'm like, dude, that's a low bar. I feel like, dude, I'm old. It's like the bar should be like you should at least be able to bench 135 or something. I don't know what the bar should be, but like you should be able to like walk a mile and not be dying or something like that. I guess it depends on exactly how old you are, but I mean that's like a boomer measurement for health, of someone who's never exercised in their whole life. So it's like I think our rising generation is much more health focused than many of our predecessors in the boomer generation, and I think Gen X is is a little bit more as well. But anyway, I thought that was a kind of a funny measure of health that I was just like, okay, we're setting this standard way low here. So mental health. So I was actually looking at some research. There's a guy named Professor Peter Clow, who works at applied psychology at the Manchester Metropolitan University. So he did a study, and he kind of came up with a book, and he defined mental toughness as, quote, a personality trait which determines in large part how people respond to challenges, stress, pressure, irrespective of the circumstance. So it's like, regardless of the circumstance, how do you respond to these different pressures, challenges of life? And he has categorized kind of mental toughness into 4 categories. And I'll go through those and kind of describe them. One is control. He says the 4 C's. So the first one is control. This one he talks about having a sense of self-worth. It's important to believe in yourself and be able to control your life by your actions. And how can you control your display of emotions, or are you out of control? He said people who can keep on keeping on, irrespective of how they feel, and work through emotionally charged situations without being totally derailed, that is mental toughness. So it's like, I feel like people do this a lot of the time. It's just like, I'm feeling tough, I'm having a hard day, but I'm charging through, I got to get this stuff done. So that's control. The second one is commitment. How well can you set and achieve goals? Can you keep promises to yourself on things you say you will do? Set goals and achieve them. I feel like this is one that we've tried to mold for ourselves, myself included. I feel like this is one that I'm constantly trying to work on. But also, this is part of our podcast, and part of our thing is like setting goals, trying to achieve them, pushing yourselves, and being disciplined. I mean, essentially, that's being disciplined, right? Commitment to yourself, being disciplined. The next one is confidence. Confidence in your abilities. Confidence to deal with the challenges and also being able to influence people, so that you can influence people to persuade them in whatever it is that you may be needing or whatever. So you have to have confidence in yourself. That builds mental toughness. That's why there's people talk about imposter syndrome and all these kind of things. That's if you don't have any confidence, that's mental weakness, right?
Yep.
And the last one is challenge. Can an individual push back on boundaries, embrace change, accept risk? How do they handle new people, places, innovation, creativity? So there's this aspect of like dynamic. How dynamic is your brain? Are you able to adapt, overcome, and really get to like all other parts, challenge other people, push back on boundaries? And so those are the four C's: control, commitment, challenge, and confidence. That's how he's kind of bucketed those different aspects of mental fortitude. And so as I went through that list, you can think, okay, well, maybe I need to work on this one. Maybe I need to work on a little bit more control. Maybe my commitment piece is a little bit wanting. That's where I need to maybe make goals or be more disciplined with myself. Or maybe it's risk tolerance. Maybe when you are in a situation where something is different, you really start to freak out. And so I feel like for me, for mental toughness, one of the ways that I continue to challenge myself, and I think this helps with confidence, I think this helps with challenge, just into being in a difficult situation, is these jiu-jitsu tournaments I've been doing. I've done, I think, 5 tournaments so far, and this 2 weeks will be my 6th, and they're tough physically, but mentally it's the toughest. It's really, it's nerve-wracking getting out there. You're nervous. Different people handle nerves differently. Some people throw up. There's one guy in our gym. He's probably the best guy in our gym. He's a younger guy. He's 20. He'll throw up. He throws up in a trash can before every single match. And he'll throw up 3 or 4 times at a tournament, and he'll puke, and then he'll go out and absolutely destroy someone. And then other people like, I gotta go to the bathroom. They gotta go take a dump.
Nervous pees,
or the nervous poops, or whatever. And so part of it is just like the buildup, and then the anticipation, and it's this uncertainty of, I don't know what he's gonna throw at me. I don't know what I'm gonna do. You have kind of a game plan in your head, but for me, that's actually been a way for me to really get outside my comfort zone and to put myself in a stressful situation where normally if I was in a situation like that, I would leave the situation, or I would just be like, oh, I don't want to do this. And so I feel like it's a way to help me grow. And I feel like I heard once that courage is being afraid, but or being afraid, but keeping a straight face is basically what courage is. And that was kind of how the quote goes.
Embracing the fear, yeah.
And so, it's really nerve-wracking, and it doesn't. In some ways, it kind of baffles me because I don't often get myself in those situations, and so I'm like, well, why am I so nervous about these things? And like, I don't want to get injured, but is it that I don't want to lose? I don't really care that much if I want to win.
I paid to be here, so I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, and it's like, oh well, sometimes when it's over, I'm more happy that it's over than if I won or lost. It's just like, now the stress of that anxiety of doing that is over. So, but once you start fighting, actually, or once you start actually the match, all that goes out of your mind, and you're just like, I gotta get this guy, and it just all goes away. Well, so it's kind of cool. It's a unique experience for sure. The next one I had was kind of like what I was thinking was emotional. I kind of lumped that in with mental, but did you have anything you wanted to say about emotional strength?
Yeah. I think you had said one thing that while you were talking about mental that I think it defines emotional really well is you're like, whenever you're, faced with a stressful situation, you don't just like freak out. You know, I think that's what it is. I think emotional strength is being able to regulate your emotions in accordance to what the situation needs in order to be resolved, right? Being able to match your emotions with the needed resolution is definitely, I think, an important skill to have for sure.
Oh yeah, and then the last one here I had was social. So I had a few notes on that, but anything?
Yeah,
anything you think?
Yeah.
Do you have anything on social?
I think one of the ones that I had before social, and then you can get into social and some of the comments you have, was I actually had moral strength.
Oh, okay.
Which is not one that you talk about often, but it's really interesting. Moral strength encompasses integrity, honesty, ethical behavior, a strong sense of values and principles, and standing up for what is right. That is something I definitely think it takes strength to do the right thing sometimes, even if that right thing is might affect your reputation, or it might affect your job, or it might create a situation where you or someone or everyone might be uncomfortable. Or I think it takes mental strength of the saying that you can really tell the integrity of a man by what he does when others are not looking. I think that is definitely moral strength. If you can build fortitude around a certain set of moral standards that you have placed for yourself,
a personal creed, if you will.
Yeah, a set of principles or guidelines that are aims that help guide your actions, right? Moral strength, definitely not one that's always lumped into this group, but I think it's very important.
Yeah, I like that one. I don't know that I would call it, for me personally, I don't know that I would call it moral strength. I would say strength to live your creed, or strength to stand up for what you believe in. I think the connotation of moral is
morality. Morality can be a construct, right?
We say moral, it means like good or bad, right? We think of like sinful
morality
or righteous. Whereas I think a lot of these things, I mean, what's sinful for one is could be righteous for another. And so I think it's just like the strength to stand up for your beliefs. Is what I think I would categorize that. Yeah, but that absolutely is such a strong thing, and thank you for bringing that one up. That's absolutely. I mean, if you don't stand up for what you believe in, then
you don't stand up for something, you'll fall for anything, right?
Yeah. So
cool. Yeah. So what do you have about social strength?
So no, I just was thinking about that quote you just said. It kind of struck me a little bit differently than I had always heard it before. If you don't stand for something, then you'll fall for anything, unless you're falling for the thing that you stand for. Unless the thing that you're standing for maybe is not worth standing for. Like, I don't know. Like that's kind of go back to what I was talking about, loyalty, right? Be sure that your loyalties are aligned to the right things, and then stand for those things. So
well, and that something can be different for everyone, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, that was just a little bit of a side thought that I had.
An epiphany, if you will.
Yeah, sometimes things hit you differently at different points in your life. So socially, science. So I think that this is so important as parents to think about with our kids. Anxiety is at all-time highs right now with kids, with rising teens. I've got a child, at least one child that is highly anxious. And so we really kind of have to watch him. And he says he's not anxious, but we think he has some anxiety tendencies. And I think a lot of kids do now. And I think part of it is just because we as a society realize it's anxiety, and we're not just like, oh, rub some dirt on it kind of a thing. And so we can actually deal with our problems and not just like man wipe them away with mud, which is kind of this, I think, false sense of masculinity. I mean, I think in some ways, yes, you just need to like man up on some things, but dealing with your problems actually, instead of just avoiding your problems, it's even more masculine. So when they talk about anxiety, some of the things to watch for in your kids for anxiety is like, do they avoid social situations? Are they physically slumped over, or do they shrink in public? Do they have difficulty engaging in conversations? Are they overly self-critical, or do they have low self-esteem? Are they overly concerned with how they will be perceived by others? Or do they feel overwhelmed and easily embarrassed in social settings? So it's kind of a social anxiety. And these are some tips that you can use to boost that confidence. If you feel that way too, these are some tips you can do to boost your confidence. Encourage a positive self-talk in yourself and in your teens or your kids. Learning how to do positive affirmations, will help a lot. If you keep telling yourself, I'm awful, I'm terrible, I'm dumb, every single day, you're going to be that. So say things like, I'm great, I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm amazing, and let that raise you up and be that. And the next one is practice being assertive. Role play situations that may cause anxiety to you or your teen or your child, and such as maybe asking a teacher for help or talking to peers. Role play those situations, and it takes the scariness out of it. Be supportive. Encourage your child or yourself to identify their strengths and focus on what they can do rather than what makes them anxious. So focus on some of your strengths. And then, if there's a situation where you are so deep into it and you need some help, reach out to a counselor or a doctor. I think that in some situations, people may need some medicine to help balance them out, or to help get them on a path where they can operate effectively. And so there's lots of different things there, but things to watch out for, because nowadays, kids kill themselves, man. Like the number one cause of death, I think, from kids like ages, like 9 or probably 6 to 18 is suicide. And so, we just got to watch out. And we'll also build these things on ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's so important to develop some sort of repertoire skill sets that you can implement to be able to deal with situations personally, or to help, teach your kids. I kind of have a similar thought, and I know I've talked about this before, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but when we talk about strength, I always actually looked up and read several studies that were done on exposure therapy. And exposure therapy is a psychological treatment, right? That it's or an approach, let's call it, that is used to help individuals confront and overcome their fears, their phobias, and anxiety disorders and other emotional challenges. So it involves gradually and systematically exposing a person to the feared stimulus or situation in a controlled and supportive environment. So you expose them, like you were saying, do role plays and do different things like that, so that they can almost learn how it feels to be uncomfortable. So the kind of continued small doses of poison, right, will help you to build up antibodies to be able to resist that thing that is feared in your life. And so, for me, one of the things that I guess maybe I personally struggle with is, especially in the workplace, is I'm not super social in the workplace. I don't know if it's because I don't really have much in common with people, or I'm weird, or whatever else, but I'm kind of an introvert. in like the quote unquote networking world. And I think some of it has to do with people that are my age, typically haven't been married for 12 years and have 4 kids, right? People my age who are in their, early to mid 30s are like, just getting out of the party phase.
Yeah.
And so
they're engaged right now.
Yeah, or maybe engaged, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like I have a hard time relating sometimes, but that's a whole different topic. But one thing that I have tried to do is, we have these like luncheons and stuff at work, and there's like 50 people in there, and they bring in pizza or whatever else. Sometimes I find myself, I'll go in, I get a piece of pizza, and I'll just go sit at my desk, and I'll like eat pizza and work.
Yeah.
And I think some of that's just because I don't want to have to be forced to socialize. So I've really kind of tried to put myself out there and say, okay, in these situations when we have these social hours or whatever,
Yeah.
I am going to make a specific effort. I'm going to go and talk to like 2 people that I don't know and introduce myself and kind of, I have a little, this is what I do type spiel that I can, kind of, just say, just to kind of introduce myself to people. And it's uncomfortable. And a lot of times I have to like build myself. I'm like, all right, I said two, let's do it, and then go and do it. And it has been great. It has been, I've gotten to know more people, which is good. But also I think it has just kind of put me in a position to where the more that I've done that, it's not that big a deal anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I could go, talk to whoever about whatever and everything else. Which is kind of weird because I'm not like that all the time.
Yeah.
And so the exposure therapy can do several things. But some of the studies that I'd read, and I pulled out some of the, I guess, the ways that it can help you build strength is just building resilience to a certain stimulus. It can help you to develop coping skills. So, if you do something a couple times and then you're like, oh, it actually went a little bit easier when I said it this way, or even when I, took deep breaths before I went out and did this thing that was difficult, it helped me, right? So it can help you develop coping skills in certain situations. It can definitely increase your confidence. Because you can basically, you're showing yourself that you can do tough, hard things, which is a confidence booster. It helps you to promote emotional regulation, to not just freak out in a moment of stress and stimulus, but to calmly react. Right? If someone is terrified of spiders, right, but then once a day they go in and they, take one step closer to a tarantula that's in a box in the corner after, years of stepping closer and closer and closer and closer and realizing that it's not that big a deal, then, the first day they might have ran out of the room screaming, not being able to control their fear and emotions. Mm-hmm. But after that exposure, they're like, oh yeah, this is no big deal. I can regulate my emotions and my reaction.
Yeah.
And then just overcoming limiting beliefs, like what you said, just thinking positively of yourself, right? Positive affirmations. Oh yeah, I can do this. I got this. Not a big deal, right? This is easy stuff. So that was kind of exposure therapy is one thing that I think is really important. And I think it's important to learn how to be uncomfortable, because then it makes you appreciate so much more comfortability. And it opens your eyes for sure. And you had mentioned this earlier. Another thing, kind of last thing that I had was the whole adage, right? In the military, one of the main phrases is adapt, improvise, and overcome. And you had said adapt and overcome earlier.
Yeah.
And the phrase is adapt, improvise, and overcome is a very commonly used military phrase that just it kind of reflects the essence of strength, right?
Yeah.
Assess your situation, figure something out, and beat it in whatever it takes. And I think that is true strength.
Yeah. No, it's good, man. I love it.
You already kind of shared a couple quotes. Did you have a quote?
I do have one more quote, yeah. So
okay, yeah, you have a quote, and I have a quote after you, so you go ahead.
So this one kind of ties back with what I was talking about jiu-jitsu, but it's by Eleanor Roosevelt, and it says, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." And it just made me think, how often are you looking fear in the face? How often are you nervous? Do your hands start to sweat about what you're going to do? And if it's not very often, then maybe seek out opportunities to do that. And it could be as simple as going to introduce yourself to 2 people in the company pizza party, or it could be starting that new company, or it could be talking to a girl, for a single guy, talking to a girl, or having that hard conversation with your wife, or whatever it may be, or going to do a tournament, or doing a race, or something like that. Do something that makes your palms sweat, and that is how strength and courage are built.
Makes your knees weak, your arms are heavy.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you get stronger, man. Without that, you're just living a life of luxury and comfort, and that's not where strength is built.
Yeah. Yep. Strength and resilience is not built in comfort. The quote that I had was from good old Superman himself,
Clark Kent.
Christopher Reeves.
Oh, okay.
So he said, "A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming circumstances and obstacles." So, a true hero is just a normal guy. Anyone can be strong. You don't have to be the quote unquote world's strongest man, right, to be strong. Anyone can be strong. Ordinary people that find strength to persevere in overcoming whatever the cards they have been dealt are.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. I think adapting, improvising, and overcoming is a virtue that will build strength in your life for sure.
Yeah. No, it's been great. These have been great things. Definitely give me a lot to think about, and try to look for those opportunities in my life to do that, to build that strength. So for those of you listening, we appreciate you listening with us today. Appreciate you joining us in our journey to build our personal creeds, and hopefully you've gleaned some things you can apply personally here, as well to the children in your own family or in your own lives, or nieces and nephews, whoever it may be, and influence others to grow in their strength across a variety of different factors. So with that, let's build that creed together.
All right, let's do it.